Hi, this is Dave Wachter. I'm the artist of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you're listening to Southern Fried Geekery.
1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As usual, I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
I'm Craig Lance.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Jerry.
And it's been a great week, guys. We welcome you back to another episode. This is episode 70. Honestly, never thought we'd make it this far, but we're gonna make it, or fake it till we make it, I guess.
Damn right.
If you've liked what you've heard on the podcast, and we really hope you have, you should come hang out with us on our Facebook group. It's on and popping. Always have stuff going on there. Have some fun conversations happening and chit-chatting and sharing news and articles and what have you. Taking selfies. We also are on Instagram so you can see what we're reading. And we're on Twitter at SFG Podcast on both of those. If you've got any questions, comments, or concerns, you should definitely shoot me an email at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. So now we got all that out of the way. I always try to use like my professional talking voice with that. I don't know how it works out, but I always feel like an idiot and a douchebag when I'm doing it.
Self-promotion is always a weird thing anyway.
Yeah, it's just strange. This whole thing that we do is strange.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we just sit around the table and talk into microphones and hope people actually care what we're saying, it's just a weird thing.
It's just so odd to me that just some type of hubris, but I like it.
Yeah,
and somehow works.
How has everybody been this week? How's your weeks going?
Work's been crap, but, professionally a little weird, but, everything else has been good.
Sean?
Not too bad. Work is always, but between started the week with Endgame and Game of Thrones and finished off with Free Comic Book Day. So
Nice.
Can't complain too much.
And Star Wars Day in the middle
Star
of
Wars Day on the same day.
It's kind of the holy week of nerdgasms.
It's a pretty big week for nerds.
My week's been alright. I had the worst time sleeping all week long. Yeah.
Well, it sucks.
Yeah.
Have you tried drinking? That's what I do.
Yeah, actually, surprisingly.
The self-medication.
But yes,
we do not promote that.
I do.
Okay.
You speak for yourself, sir. I self-medicate on the regular. But no, so it's been a good week. Like Sean said, we had a lot of geek culture things happening going on. I am, if you've been keeping up with me, moving back into my house. So that's been fun.
Yay.
Very happy. Very happy
nightmare
for
fuel,
you.
but it's hectic and busy. And then I graduate next weekend, so
wow.
this is not stopping.
Wow.
I'm tired.
What day do you graduate?
Saturday.
Yeah.
With my bachelor's in English and creative writing.
Congrats, buddy.
And then go on to law school, because that's a thing I decided to do. Choices were made. I don't know if they're good ones yet, but we'll see. I have a thank you before we get moved on too much, if y'all are okay with that.
Yeah.
We have some pretty cool listeners, and we know that. But about 2 weeks ago, a friend of ours, Zach Davis, reached out, and the guy who listens to the show, I think he's from Michigan, so he's not from around here. He reached out and said, "Hey, shoot me your address. I got something for you." And so I did. I was just curious to see what he is. And later on, he said, number one, he sent me comics that he has made. And he sent me 4 copies of them. So I'm going to now live and in person distribute them to the crew.
Awesome.
We know what our roundtable book next week is.
Yeah, it's called Crimson Rider. It's by Zach, art by Tyler Sowles, lettering by Justin Birch, and Jake Clinton did some title design on it.
I've already opened it up, and I can tell that the art's pretty dope.
It's pretty great, so I'm going to get excited about that. But in a moment of just humbling.
Wow! Thank you very much.
Just to humble me. He also sent me a huge box of Conan comics, just because. He said, "Hey man, I know you're a big fan. He's been going through and collecting. He just finished his volume 1 of Conan the Barbarian collection. He finished the entire run.
Oh, nice.
So he sent me a bunch of duplicates, and he's been going through every day and posting a different cover, in order, starting with one and going on. I'm kind of floored. This is never, we as friends we share comics with each other, and it's really cool that now we are extending that beyond just our little community. Now, somebody from Michigan is sending me comics just as, hey, I know you're a fan of the character and I want you to have this. So in return, since I've got a shipping address, which is, diabolical and there's plans, I'm going to send him back some comics. I'm going to ship him back a big box of Happy. He also,
get with me before you do that, because I probably have some stuff that we can throw in there too.
I think, that'd be awesome. He also, because he knows I'm a fan of the beers, he sent me 8 different beers, and I'm excited. So I'm going to drink one while we're doing the show, and this one's called the Original Milkshake Stout, and it's by Rochester Mears Beer Co. ale brewed with milk sugars and cocoa nibs.
Yeah,
So-
it's like noon, like 1 hour off the coast of New York,
Yeah.
so you're good.
Yeah. Welcome to Southern Fried Drinkery.
That's a good beer.
Listen, Caleb
awesome.
and I don't need a reason to drink.
That's a really good beer. It's got like some nice chocolate tones to it.
Oh, nice.
The beans come through really well. I'm gonna like this.
Okay, good.
So again,
Good.
thank you,
Congrats.
Zach, man.
Yeah.
And I
Awesome. Thank you for the book.
I can't wait to return that favor.
Yeah. I can't wait to read the book. It looks really awesome.
Yeah.
Cowboy book. And,
Right.
Into some Wild West shenanigans.
You want to make that? We're
Yeah, let's-
making it
next
roundtable
week.
for next
Absolutely.
week. Sweet, make this the
Absolutely.
roundtable. All right, so come back next week and we'll have Zach's book on here. That's just dope. Thank you again, man.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So if you've listened to the show, you know that we about 3 months ago we switched up our format a little bit. We do something a little bit
Yeah.
different. Every episode we try to roundtable something. 95% of the time it's a book.
Yeah.
It's a comic. 95% of the time.
Little
it's-
thing happened this past week, though.
It did. Small little blip on the cultural radar. You may have went to the movies. I think it's probably a rare occasion that you didn't go to the movies and see this. Something broke the movie scene. Avengers Endgame came out with a force.
This is probably the biggest cultural phenomenon since May of 1977.
Yes. It's
What
already...
happened, man? No, I'm just kidding.
That sound you just heard
Don't
was
make me
Jerry
kill
getting
you.
kicked out of the house. Avengers Endgame, it's already made over $1 billion. It is the kind of culmination of 10 years worth of this franchise just building itself into a monster. And before we get going on this too much, it's been almost a week and a half. We're going on 2 weeks. The Russo brothers officially declared Monday as the day that the dam breaks. Like, spoilers are going to happen. We're going to cheat a little bit and send this out a day early, but this is going to be a full spoiler.
Now we're going to get the
episode.
Russo brothers on us.
Hey, if they want to come on the show and fight,
Listen,
Right.
if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't watched Avengers yet, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
You just
Not
got to,
wrong.
man. Something like this, it's going to happen.
Avoiding crowds and people.
But I want to reiterate again, if you are in the vast minority of human beings who has not seen this film yet, we're about to drop some spoilers. We're going to talk about the movie. So turn us off.
Yep. Full spoiler review coming up.
Go to your theater, sit your butt down, grab a popcorn, get your drink, get yourself a tasty beer, and watch this movie because it's now in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenal. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Do we want to do like a brief overview of what the movie was? Or
Yeah,
we
it
just
was a
wanna-
bunch of shit.
It was-
this movie. No,
Stuff happened. Things happened.
So
I'm going to do like the reviewer on that I saw on YouTube that was like, yeah, spoilers, Iron Man dies. Fuck off if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
Wow. Straight there.
All right, so
Straight
this
there.
movie picks up right after Infinity War ended. So the snap happens. You see the 3 weeks right after that happens, people are dealing with the aftermath, and then you get a 5-year time jump. In 5 years, again, people are just trying to survive. My buddy Brian put it in a great way. It feels like The Leftovers. It just it is bleak. It is desolate. It is sad. People are like the Earth is basically a living organism of PTSD, and we don't know what to do. Like the humans don't know what to do. The heroes don't know what to do. Things have changed, and it seems kind of hopeless until it's not. Until our buddy Ant-Man pops himself out of a little quantum zone place, and what did this?
Scotland.
Quantum zone.
Quantum Realm?
Yeah,
The quantum realm. Yeah.
and he comes back and he's just like, what's going on? And they're all like, what do you mean what's going on? He's like, I've been gone for 5 minutes. And they've said, no, you've been gone for 5 years.
5 hours.
Yeah, 5 hours. And everything has changed. Now all of these people are gone. And so essentially what they do, and I'm giving the very brief abridged version because I want to talk about the goodies that are involved with this. They decide to use the quantum zone, quantum realm, to go back in time, to do some timey-wimey travel stuff, and to fix it. And what they can't do is stop Thanos from snapping.
Mm-hmm.
What they can do is they can get the Infinity Stones,
Mm-hmm.
and they can alter the reality from that point. And essentially that's what they do. And what we're going to talk about is what happens in the middle of that.
Yeah, so Marvel sets up some very weird time travel rules, and the best advice I have for you is just don't think about it too much.
Right.
Right.
Basically, what you need to know is that at the end of it, everything that's happened has already happened, no matter what new timelines you think they've added or whatever. Those are not applicable and will never be a thing.
True.
It's with the exception of one, and I think that's the Loki getting the Tesseract cube.
Yeah, they bend their own rules a little bit for that.
Yeah. Well, he has one of the stones. So basically, the stones are what control alternate timelines, and as long as the stones were returned to where they were picked up, all the timelines were reset.
I don't think it was necessarily where they were
Within that, yeah.
but in that time.
In that time, in that same area, whatever. Yeah.
Although in the movie they did say, like, got to put them back exactly when we took them.
Really?
When-
Yeah, they
yeah.
did specify that. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see Captain America reinfecting Jane Foster with the Aether. I
Right.
think that there's certain things that he probably just went and set the stone down
Right.
in there or something. You know what?
Let what happens happens.
Yes. So
I mean, the real plot device of time travel here is to give us a nostalgia trip of the last,
that's right.
15 years,
11.
11 years of movies that we've got. So you get what? Thor, Dark Worlds, Avengers, and then you actually...
Civil War.
Yeah. No? Did
Yeah.
they?
Well, Winter Soldier
Winter
for
Soldier.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then you actually get some other time stuff that we didn't necessarily see that they involved us in with, was it around World War II or a little after with his dad?
Oh, yeah.
Howard
Yeah.
Stark. Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. You got a little bit of everything in there. They just gave you some nostalgia and things like that. Gave you a
Yeah,
trip
it's-
back through the timeline.
It's a way to celebrate. It's a way to celebrate these films, these 22 films. So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. So I want to start as we usually do, and it's kind of a moot point, but we should still do it anyway. Let's go around the table and give just a brief, thumbs up, thumbs down, initial thoughts for everybody. So Craig, kick us off on that one, man.
Yeah, I love this movie. Like I said, don't try to nitpick the time travel too much because it'll drive yourself crazy. But just enjoy it for what it is, and it's a fun movie with a lot of feels, and it earns every one of those emotions within this movie itself. If you haven't watched the other 21 movies leading up to this, you may not have the same emotions, but it should still evoke some emotions from you. So
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Great bookend to, like I said, 22 movies now, 10 or 11 years of Marvel built up. Good send-offs for the characters that are done, at least for now. You never know. But yeah, I mean, I've seen it twice now, and it's a long movie. It's almost 3 hours long, if not 3 hours. And the pacing is perfect, even on the second view, and I think I actually enjoyed it more the second time around.
yeah, it's actually runtime is 3 hours and 2 minutes. That includes the credits.
Yeah, so fantastic film. What a ride.
I enjoyed it too. It was a pretty good end cap. And it's weird that, our Far From Home movie is the last in phase 3.
Right.
I have
This
thoughts
one
on
wasn't.
that, but we'll get to that in just a bit.
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Emotionally, I loved it.
Mhm.
I don't think 30 minutes passed through this movie where I didn't get hit in the chest with some kind of feels.
Mhm.
As a movie, stepping back and just viewing it critically, it's a fine movie.
Yeah.
There's
Definitely not 10 out of 10.
for sure.
Yeah.
It was
It's not going to win an Oscar.
no, it's not the best thing Marvel has done, but it's certainly it is a fine wrap up to what this is, and it's going to be a cool mechanism. They kind of opened up the world a little bit to go forward. It's going to be cool to see how they push forward to do different things with these characters. There were some characters in here that really stood out. There were also some moments in here that didn't really center around the characters that we know that really just humanized the entire thing. I think it was really cool how the first part of the movie is mainly character driven, and the second half of the movie goes into plot and just really races through things. So there's plot all through it, but a lot of times that's because your characters are the plot. And that was certainly the case with the first part of this movie. I felt like the first hour was slower because of that, but I enjoyed it. It wasn't slow and then come on, let's get to the good stuff. It was just slower paced. It was a quieter portion of the film.
Well, I felt like the first 15 minutes of this movie, since we're talking about the quality of the movie,
Okay.
it felt very disjointed to me.
Yeah.
And it was intentional that it felt that way, but I didn't realize that at first. It starts off with Bart and his family, and it kind of...
Clint.
Yeah. I'm sorry. With Clint and his family, and, you kind of get this emotional impact because it's actually happening at the time of the snap.
Yeah.
And then, they go on this trek and they just wipe Thanos out without any problems. And it's like, okay, what the fuck did just happen?
And I think, to be very, very beaten and destroyed.
Oh, yeah, he's wrecked. So
yeah.
Essentially what Thanos did is after Thanos snapped and, he goes back to his garden and hides, he destroys the Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
And which in turn basically destroys him. And Thor finishes the job that he started in the first part of the movie. He comes in, just zero fucks given, cuts his arm off right off the bat, and then goes straight for the head.
And he listens to Thanos' advice. He should have gone for the
head. and just lopped it right off. And I was sitting in the theater. I don't know about you guys. I'm just like, the fuck just happened?
No, I was like, okay, so Thanos isn't the bit, because I'd never heard any of the time travel, any credible just time travel theories in the movie. So I'm sitting there like, Thanos killed him again, like, oh, so what's this movie going to be about?
Exactly.
I was sitting there going, what do I do for the next 2.5 hours? Because we're 20
well,
minutes
that was quick. If they had just
done
done that in the last movie, we wouldn't have had this movie.
But it set them up to do what I kind of think we all suspected them to do from the start, which is use time travel to fix things. I had a working theory that it was half of the movie was going to take place inside the Soul Stone. The other half, that theory was not true. I was wrong, as I expected.
My theory was more of them, most of it taking place in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Because if he turned them to atoms, I was like, oh, they're going to use, the PEM particles and stuff to reassemble the gems or something of that nature. That's kind of where I was going with
They
it.
made some unexpected moves, but it was pleasantly unexpected. And that's what I like about a movie. So I don't know about you guys. I went into this movie, well, I can't say that. I was going to say I went in with no spoilers. I did actually have one minor thing spoiled for me prior to seeing the film, which, was through nobody's fault. It was just an accident. So, but
I accidentally spoiled something for Sean, too, and for that, I'm sorry.
I wasn't going to, like I told you before, I almost wasn't going to tell you. I didn't want you to feel bad because it was completely subconscious. On the last episode we recorded.
If
y'all listeners listened, you remember that Craig had said, I'm wearing a very specific shirt. And he had a shirt with Funko Pops, and they're all, it's Secret Wars.
Yeah.
And his hand, I know, completely subconscious, floated over Falcon as Captain America.
Yeah.
On that shirt. A little too long. I'm like, okay.
So it's funny. That's actually what got spoiled for me.
And I would say out of everything that happened in this movie, that's the least I was worried about.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost an
big
end-credit
deal.
scene. It would have been an end-credit scene had this been a typical Marvel movie.
I feel like meta knowledge, we knew that it was probably going to happen.
We knew it was one of the two because meta knowledge about Chris Evans being done as Captain America. So I wasn't mad about it.
No. So, and I did
Still
a really good,
unintentional.
Absolutely.
I did a really good job about staying off of social media leading up to this because I didn't want things spoiled. A dear friend sent me a text message assuming that I was going to go see it on opening night. I didn't get to see it till Saturday, but she sent me a message and said LOL America's ass. And her son, she's white, her husband is black. They have a mixed race child who is a freaking adorable. I love that kid. And he looks up at her and goes, "Mommy, Captain America's black now?" and she texted that to me, and I was like, "Oh wait, I haven't seen this yet. Time out." Like.
Stop.
Stop. Like,
a very cool moment for you, but stop.
Yeah, she said, "Oh my God, I assumed you'd seen it. Let me back up. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Look, no, like I'm a comic book nerd. Like these are things I suspected to happen, but I'll call you tomorrow. Like time out.
Quit texting me."
So no, I mean I love it, Mandy. I love you, and you're all good. So no worries. But yeah, there were those moments that. Let's talk about the first part of the movie. After they kill Thanos, and it feels kind of final, at least to those characters. And these are, these are Cap, Rocket,
Natasha.
Thor, Natasha. I guess, yes. I mean, just Thor.
Captain Marvel. I mean, yeah.
And I mean, probably the character with this movie, I would say probably had one of the biggest character arcs of the entire franchise, Nebula.
Nebula was the standout.
Yeah, I would argue that her and
absolutely.
Thor had the two biggest character arcs of the entire franchise up to this point.
They learn where Thanos is because of Nebula.
Yeah.
She's just like, no, this is the one place he would go. And they go to avenge. And they do what their namesake tells them to do. They avenge. Like I said, there's not a fight.
No.
But after that, and this is kind of the jump 5 years later, everyone is kind of dispersed and breaks up. Natasha is running the Avengers. The world, like I said, is just in a constant state of post-traumatic stress disorder. Everyone is sad. Like, when Ant-Man finally comes out back from the quantum realm, he sees some kid riding a bicycle, and he's just like, what happened here? And like, the kid doesn't even, like, somebody could have gotten beat to death right in front of that kid and he wouldn't have blinked.
Right.
Like, he's just broken. The world is fucking broken. And they don't really know what to do. So this is like opens up to one of the most poignant scenes in the entire film for me. Cap is kind of doing the Sam thing. Like, he's leading these therapy sessions, like group therapy sessions, and they're going around and they're having this conversation. And number one, you get to see Jim Starlin in this scene. He's in this therapy session, which is fucking metal as shit. But you also get a character who is he's just an older man, and he's talking about he went on a date, and he went on a date with another man, and because his husband had gotten caught in the snap. And I really like, you have to realize that I'm the one who's speaking here, but like seeing that, having that moment, having to think about the finality of, what would I do if I lost my husband or my partner, and having Marvel like give that nod to diversity and give that nod to representation, and the fact that there's emotions involved in those relationships. Like, I was just like, Roger and I were sitting there right next to each other in the theater. I was just blubbering like a bitch, like just big old crocodile tears rolling down my face.
Yeah, but it is a major moment as far as we're aware of. Like, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that was the first showing of any character who openly gay.
Yeah, as far as we know.
It's big, and it was actually played by one of the Russo brothers.
Oh, was it?
Yes, it was. They wanted to make sure that happened in the movie. So, I mean, one of the I forget which one, but stepped in for that role.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just want to say, if I'm ever going to have group therapy, I want Captain America to be the counselor for it.
Right.
Oh, dude, he understands pain. For sure.
I just want to go to therapy with Jim Starlin. If I can make that happen, that'd be great.
And maybe if Tyler Durden was in the group therapy class with me too.
If I walk into a room and Tyler Durden's my therapist and or my therapy partner, I'm going to walk out.
Yeah,
that's just not. That's not for me. So from there,
Snowflake.
Right. So that's one of my favorite moments in this film, and it's small and it's quiet. But I'm curious about you guys. What are some of your, like, just windows into the movie? These moments. What were some of your favorites?
For me, one of my favorite like moments like that, and this movie's chock full of them, but one of my favorite ones was when we find out that Natasha knows that Clint's become Ronin, and he's out just vigilanteing people and killing them, and she's just sitting there crying because she knows the path he's going on, because she's been down that dark path before in her life, and the emotion she has for her friend who pulled her out of that world and gave her a second chance, who's now going down that same path. Mm-hmm. That, to me, was one of those moments.
What you got, Sean?
High emotion for me is always, I mentioned it like when we did our MCU countdown. Like, one of my favorite moments is just when the teams come together. I'm jumping way to the end of the movie.
Okay.
Just when you hear Sam say on your left, portals open up, everyone's back ready to kick ass. I'm getting short of breath as talking about it, and it happened both times I watched the fucking movie. Mm-hmm. That was the moment for me.
It was a great scene.
Yeah.
I mean, being the huge Ant-Man fan that I am,
right?
It was very emotional at the beginning of that movie when he came back.
Ooh, yeah.
And he was looking at the wall and, seeing all the names and looking for his daughter's name.
And seeing his own name. Yeah. Because they assumed he got dusted.
Yeah. And then, like, going back, and that's... Because I was like, whenever she showed up and she was like way older, I was like, what the fuck? Because we didn't know at that point that.
And presumably living alone. Presumably
her mom was.
It was just the daughter. That first scene was just the daughter.
So, like,
presumably her mom and her stepdad were also snapped.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, Scott Lang had a really big part in this movie, and it was really great. Also, the taco scene.
It was pretty great.
I mean, it was more of like, Hulk has this new, like, thing now. Bruce can control. Like he's got his mind in the Hulk's body.
Which, like the first of like many like straight up comic references, like they're pulling directly from source material for a lot of stuff, and that was the first big one,
Like,
and it was amazing.
It's like not long after Scott gets back, and they try to formulate this plan, and he's like sitting outside trying to put a taco together.
Yeah,
and Rocket and Nebula land, and it just destroys his taco, and everybody's like, look out, there's like this homeless guy outside or whatever. And like Banner walks up and he's got a bunch of them, and he just kind of hands 2 of them to Scott, and I'm like, oh.
So I think we have to back up a little bit to paint the full picture about how that scene takes place, and what, especially because so much of it is visually comedic.
Yeah.
So after Thor kills Thanos in the first 15 minutes of the film and just confuses the shit out of everybody, he goes back to what is, I guess, New Asgard.
Yeah.
Do we
appears
know?
to be on the East Coast somewhere.
Yeah, it's
no,
New
that
England or something.
Yeah, it was like because it was where Odin passed. Because remember, he was like,
Oh, so maybe Norway or something.
Maybe it was Scotland or something like
Norway
that.
Yeah, actually,
Norway.
I think it was something like, because under the New Asgard, they had other writing that looked very like Swedish or Nordic or
Right.
something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It was probably filmed in New England because it looked very
it
New
did
England.
look very New England.
Right.
So Asgard, as we know, has fallen. Odin is gone. Odin's dead. Presumably Thor.
Yeah, they're getting the group back together.
Yeah,
they
he's supposed to
team
be leading these
together.
people. Thor is probably the most mentally damaged of all of these.
He feels unworthy, and not unworthy because he killed Thanos, who was an unarmed person at the time.
Right.
Because in his mind, Thanos was dangerous even still at that point. He feels unworthy because he didn't stop Thanos the first time around. I think there's some misunderstanding about that. I think some people think that he felt bad because he killed Thanos.
Right.
Well,
He doesn't
whenever
fe-
he finally did, it didn't matter.
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't change.
It was a
anything.
hollow victory.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so he has kind of retreated to this new Asgard and is essentially just, frat boying it up.
Yeah, he's
refusing to
ruling
go
it, but he's
outside.
not ruling it.
Yeah.
He's letting Valkyrie rule it.
Valkyrie is kind of his second in charge, and he's essentially holed up with Meek and Korg, drinking kegs and kegs of beer at a time, and just playing Fortnite. Apparently, which I did not know it was a Fortnite reference. I had to have that explained to me because old man Caleb doesn't do the Fortnites, but he's let himself go.
Oh yes.
He's got a heck of a beer belly. He's essentially, I mean, he's the dude, right? Like he
Yeah.
and they
He's
they
Lebowski.
make-
Dad bod. He's
Dad
Dad
bod.
bod Thor with the big Lebowski personality.
right.
Yeah.
And so those of you that don't know Thor mythos, basically, in order to be drunk, he has to constantly drink. If he stops drinking, he sobers because of his healing factor, and he's a god.
Uh-huh.
So he's drinking kegs of beer at a time. I mean, outside of his house are just piles of kegs piled up there.
Yeah,
So
just
yeah.
mountains. and when they go looking for him, Valkyrie has to kind of explain that he doesn't come outside anymore, and he's probably not going to see you.
Yeah.
Which is both true and, depending on who comes and visits, apparently that they just let him in. And that was one of my, they spent a little bit of time explaining that he's not going to go see you, and then they just kind of waltz right in the door, which was a little bit like, oh, okay, we could have had that 30 seconds to you somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it was fine.
It was the kind of show that Valkyrie was in
I
charge
was saying, it had to be a
of.
reunion between
Right.
Hulk and Valkyrie.
Yeah. And so they convince him finally that there is a way to fix things.
But I don't want to gloss over one of the scenes in there.
Okay.
Okay, so the scene is that Bruce walks in, and Bruce and Rocket go in because they were the last that kind of dealt with Thor in a one-on-one situation type thing, and they knew that he would respond to them more likely than other team members at that point. And Thor puts his hand on Bruce and is like trying to congratulate him, and you've had this happy-go-lucky Bruce up to this point and just very seriously looks at him and says, "Get your hand off of me.
Yeah, please take your hand off.
Please take your hand off of me." And in that moment, you know that even though Bruce is in charge of the Hulk, there's still that dangerous aspect of him there. Just under the surface.
It was definitely in his tone.
Yeah.
Because it was, because Thor actually, they mentioned Thanos, and Thor being kind of a jolly drunk suddenly got very serious, like grabbed Hulk by that collar, goes, "You don't say that name."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Get that hand off of me."
Yeah.
Like friendly, but I was like, "I will fuck you up."
Well, so, and like Jerry said earlier, Bruce, Hulk, like neither one of those people is there right now. It's this Peter David-esque happy middle ground of
Doc Greenish type.
kind of, but
not quite that level.
Yeah,
but
it's more of a when Peter David was still writing Hulk Volume 1, he kind of turned this character into this figure that we see right now, and he's
this is where Caleb and I differ. It's Volume 2.
Craig is fake news. Anyway, it's
hold up, y'all gonna fight about that? I want Craig and Jerry to fight about time travel.
well, but you get this Peter David, and he is wearing like the black tank top, and the Hulk is a sentient being. He's intelligent. He's not, and it's a happy middle ground. So he's not nearly as much of a genius as Banner is, and he's not nearly as Hulk is. But he is this kind of figure who can work in the world. And I think that was perfect. And it's also like the third or fourth version of the Hulk that we've seen this at this point. And as a lifelong Hulk fan, I'm just like, yeah, that's like the Hulk constantly fluctuates.
Yeah, earlier I said Thor and Nebula had the two biggest character arcs. Certainly the Hulk's had a huge character arc.
Yeah, for sure. But I think you were right, though. I don't think his has been as grand as those two characters.
Only because he wasn't kind of centered in his own movies necessarily.
Right.
He was more parts of other movies. If he had had his own trilogy, I think you would have seen that more. But certainly if you go back and watch the portrayal of Hulk in The Incredible Hulk versus where he's at in this movie, it's a huge character arc that he's had.
But yeah, constantly drunk, self-loathing Thor is one of my favorite characters in this. And, the Hulk reaching over and planting his little taco on his plate was so much fun. And then Rocket, I laughed my ass. Like they use this character as a kind of a comedic break wonderfully throughout everything. Yeah. But there's that one scene where they walk in and Thor is dressed like the Big Lebowski. He's dressed like the dude from the Big Lebowski, complete with the sunglasses and everything. And they're looking at him and it's like, is he okay? And Rocket from the background goes, no, I think he's dead. It's just it was a lot of fun.
Speaking of character arcs, I'm sorry, Sean. Speaking of character arcs, Rocket can never go back to just being the scoundrel.
No,
he is straight up a hero now.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, and jumping back to the end of the movie, that scene where he jumps on Groot and like just protects him. I'm just like, oh
yeah,
it was so good.
You mentioned levity, like with Rocket. One of the funnier moments is when they get Tony back from space, and he never met Rocket because they were all fighting in separate areas, and he's just sitting there like, "What are we trying to figure out what's going on now that he's back on Earth?" And Rocket chimes in with something, and Tony just looks at him like, "Until literally just a second, I thought you were a Build-A-Bear." Like, how else a talking raccoon? How else would you react? So, like I said, they did a very good job, I think, of adding some levity to a very, like I said, dark and sad, for at least the first half of that movie, very sad movie.
Well, Tony was very...
I was going to say, speaking of dark and sad.
Tony was very snarky in his normal snarky way, but it was very good comedic timing through this, where he didn't just come off as an asshole.
Right.
Because sometimes Tony just comes off as an asshole. And so, speaking of character arcs, 5 years later, they've determined they've got a way. They show up at Tony's house and we've got a plan. We need your help. And he's like, yeah, I've got a new life now.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, is this Tony? He's got a daughter. And obviously he doesn't want to give up his life. Him and Pepper are married. They've got a daughter.
They were the fortunate ones that had each other when he came back.
Yeah. I mean, he came back, and while he suffered out in space and thought he was going to die, he came back and he made changes to his life, obviously, and settled down as a father and as a husband, and took on that responsibility that you didn't ever see Playboy Tony really ever embracing, but now he has. And so he goes in and he can't stop thinking about it.
Right.
And he sees a picture of Peter, who he's kind of adopted as his son, which I will say now makes me like Homecoming a little bit more. Because it's not so much just him being an asshole trying to control Peter. It's because he legit cares for the kid.
Right.
So it does kind of change my opinion of Homecoming a little bit. And he looks at this picture of Peter getting an award, and fuck it. And he goes and starts working on it. And of course he solves the time travel problem. And
just the whole arc leading up to Tony being a father, and like you especially this movie, one of the great things it does is it makes you look back at the past films.
Yeah.
Like it makes you look back at the past character developments and everything else. This has essentially been a 10-year arc of leading Tony away from that playboy, philanthropist, billionaire, whatever that line was.
I mean,
First
think
movie.
about the first movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he sleeps with the reporter at the opening.
Yeah,
you know?
it's all moving him away from that and leading him to fatherhood. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
Iron Man 3 to where he crash lands in a kid's barn, and he's he gets that kid to help him, and that's his first inkling at like, this is Tony mentoring this child, and this is like he does have a heart. Like he's one of those characters he tries to hide behind his money, he tries to hide behind his fame. He wants people to think that he is this charismatic asshole, but he has a heart. But and they do great
There's proof of that.
Yeah, there's proof of that with his that metaphor is just stringent throughout this arc.
Yeah.
And not just, like I said, not just this one movie. But at the end of this film, when, like you say, Tony is dead and they're having a funeral for their friend, you see that kid from Iron Man 3.
Yeah, spoilers. That was the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yeah. It was interesting to me how many people did. Like I saw it and I was like, oh, that's that kid from
It took
Iron
me.
Man.
I had to think about it.
Did you?
I didn't
I
recognize it
didn't
at
know
first.
who it
No,
was.
no clue that someone reminded me because I've watched 3 one time and I'm glad, and that's
Yeah, Rod
I wasn't even
over me
thinking
and he's
about
like, who is that? And I'm like, oh, that's totally the kid from
Yeah.
Grown Up Kid. But it just shows that he's
Iron
staying,
Lad.
He's fingers crossed. I think that
Yeah.
would be a great thing for them to do because we know that he's left all of this tech there. Like we know that he's kept up with him throughout the years. But yeah, the whole thing just leading Tony to being the raw nerve and the paternal figure in this entirety in this family. Just it still gets me. I need to go back. I want to go back and see this movie again because it's just and again and again and again because it's just
There's so many little parts in this and so much character development in a superhero movie. But when you think back on it, like you said, it makes you go back and think about the other movies, and really that those character journeys have been there since the beginning. We're just seeing the fruition of a lot of them.
Indeed, and that's why I think the movie succeeds the best. Is it was a satisfying conclusion to a very long journey for all the characters, and for us as viewers.
well.
Especially the Phase 1 characters,
For the most
and
part.
the Phase 2
I was
characters.
gonna say some characters didn't get some satisfying endings, but
Depends on your thoughts on it.
it does.
Yeah, of course, opinions will always vary, but yeah, let's go ahead and. I'm assuming you're talking about Black Widow.
I am.
Most people I know feel. I've heard other people express the same feelings. Go ahead, Gil.
I feel like Marvel has continually passed on an amazing character in the past 22 movies. They've made her play second fiddle in everything she's in. Scarlett Johansson and Black Widow. I'm just like both of those entities. There's zero reasons why we should not have already had a Black Widow film, a solo film. I'm glad we finally got Captain Marvel as a female-led film, but there's no reason that we should have had to wait 21 movies to get that.
Right.
It should have been her the first time. And it works in this movie to have her. So for those of you who are keeping up, we're talking about the moment to where Natasha and Clint basically fight each other for the right to die to
Right.
retrieve the soul gem from wherever the Red Skull is keeping it hidden, and Natasha just makes it impossible for Clint. Like she's the better fighter. Like and we finally get the answer to those questions that we've been asking.
Right.
Like who would win in this world? And the answer is Natasha. And I mean, never had a doubt. But
Yeah.
she just puts Clint out of the element, and she sacrifices herself in the same way that Gamora got murdered in the last scene or the last film. And they just, to me, like I get why they did that. I still think that is a sad culmination to an overlooked character.
And,
Go ahead, Sean.
and like I said, understandably so. Like your opinion, definitely. But within the context of what we were given in the movies, and granted, like you said, the big scheme of things, yes, second fiddle, never given the time to shine like she deserves. But for what they've given us of her in these movies, she was a damaged person too. Like that was the whole thing. Where I think her and Clint at the end fighting over, like they're both at this point very damaged people, very unhappy people. So to me, it made sense. Like you said, yes, does Black Widow should she deserve more? Absolutely. But within the context, I think it was fitting.
Yeah, for sure.
So you have to look at Natasha and her relationship to Clint for this fight, for this thing. And yet, I agree with what you're saying. She should have had more respect throughout the movies. But within the context of this movie, that's just an emotional, powerful scene.
Absolutely.
She is Clint's children's aunt. Regardless of blood, she's their aunt. I mean, his daughter's named after her. She has no family. As they approach there, and Red Hood says, Natasha's daughter of Ivan.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't fucking know who Ivan is. She has no. Clint's family is her family. Clint is her brother.
Well, the Avengers are her family,
Right?
Yeah.
But Clint's family is literally her family.
Well, yeah, she knows that Clint's family needs him to survive.
Yes.
Her family does not need her. Her family needs her to die. I mean, essentially, is the paradox there for her. But and like I said, I get why they did that. There were other options there, I think, and
I don't
chose
know
to explore this one, and that's kind of what you have to do.
I think that just a second, Jerry. I think that the Soul Stone and what they've said, I don't think that that's the final say on what's going to happen with the Soul Stone.
For sure.
I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, and one thing that I kind of felt was a little odd. Out of everyone that was going on to these little adventures and everything, Nebula knew what it cost to get the Soul Stone, and I don't think they really went into that.
They didn't. Nebula withheld that information.
Yeah, and that's...
Well, maybe, and it could have been easily a very big oversight on that end, or maybe she didn't exactly know.
She knew.
That's what we were...
Like, do you think she actually knew that Thanos killed Gamora for that specific purpose?
She says that in...
She said
that's where he murdered my sister. I don't remember her saying to murder my sister to get the stone.
She said he went there for the Soul Stone.
Oh, okay.
And came back with it and without Gamora.
Yeah, this is she explains that in Infinity War, and that's what causes... Peter Quill.
I couldn't remember. Like maybe she just didn't know all the detail.
No,
maybe, but I think you're right. Then that's a huge oversight.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, I don't know that it's an oversight. I think Nebula intentionally did not tell them.
Yeah,
because she knew that if
they knew that they would.
If you remember Infinity War, Steve says we don't trade lives.
Right.
I mean, that's their rule. We don't trade lives. If Nebula knew, if she told them what they had, if Steve knew.
Right.
It wouldn't have happened. Yep. In the fact that Clint and Natasha went is it's no accident that those were the two on that mission, because they were the only two that would make those choices. Out of all of the Avengers, they were the only two.
Well, they're killers. They have the closest brush with death.
Yeah.
So while we're back on Nebula, and before we get into like the big culminating fight scenes, I have a question. What did you guys feel, or how did you feel about the dual Nebulas being on the same network, and that being what led Thanos, past versions of Thanos, to kind of realize what was happening?
It's something I had to suspend my disbelief for.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I didn't feel like that there was any logical reason why they would share the same network just because they were in the same time frame. But
I saw someone explain it pretty well online. So if you have your cell phone,
yeah,
you go back in time and your cell phone exists in time, then it's possible that if someone calls your number, they're going to be calling both phones.
Okay, well, that I can buy. Okay.
I think the science 100% makes sense. It did feel like a little quick way to kind of push it in there to get him moving along. I ain't gonna say cheap is the right word, but that's all I got right now. Just like it makes sense why it worked that way, but also felt very just quick and convenient.
It didn't bother me. Don't get me wrong. Oh, yeah. It wasn't like something that took me out of the movie. It was just like, that's kind of.
It's something that intrigued me. It was something like, that's an interesting choice to like the mechanics of Nebula being
I'm surprised though, with all of the big brains that we have in the Avengers, that nobody would have considered that.
Thought about
I'm gonna put that to just distraught over the whole situation, worried about so many other factors that could happen.
So
oversights.
Your tech genius is Tony was a little busy, and then Shuri's not there, and everybody else is a different kind of science. So maybe. Yeah. That was one of the places I was like I said, it didn't take me out of the film, but I was kind of going, that's a choice.
it was absolutely fantastic to get all of these movies from the outside. So seeing Peter Quill, like they started it off, like the movie started off, and then it showed the outside, and they're like, he's an idiot. And then like you have the Avengers, and it's literally like Loki's last line was like, "I'll have that drink now," and then they just kind of continue after that, and it was great.
The way they tied it in was
extra. And the Hulk walking through New York, and they're like, "No, you have to look,
just
in case you get seen, you have to smash and stuff." And he was like just casually like slapping cars. And,
I think it's gratuitous, but okay.
It was
like
great.
sassy Hulk. I love it.
And then Tony sneaking off and seeing Cap in that suit. He's like,
"That is America's ass."
That is America's ass.
And, which I disagree with. I think Sam's got a better ass, but that's just my personal opinion. That's my.
Well, he's the new America's ass.
All right, so let's talk about. So now we've dealt with the time travel, and for those of you, we should post screenshots of our conversation. If you want the full Southern Fried Geekery discourse on how time travel works, Jerry and Craig have been going at it like monsters on our Slack channel. But it's just fun stuff.
Look, for someone who hates time travel, Craig is really defending it this week.
Well, because the way that they did the time travel,
we're not doing this.
No.
Hang on. They make rules and then they bend them to the point of breaking, but they do so in a way that nothing matters as long as you put the stones back in the same place. That's the caveat there. So
cool beans.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
So let's talk
about Steve Rogers and how he returns at the end.
let's get there. Let's talk about the big battle. Like I don't think we can.
Yes.
Like we're getting close to the end of that. As Sean said earlier, one of his favorite moments is where everything seems lost. It's kind of the climax of the movie for me.
Well, before we get there, they got back with all the gems.
Right.
Tony had made his own version of the gauntlet that
because
Hulk
Tony.
ended up. Yeah. That Hulk ends up using.
That's a good point.
And at that point, what starts the final battle is this other Gamora took Nebula took the regular Nebula's place and provided Thanos with Pym particles so he could take his whole fleet through time and bring it here. But Hulk ends up using the snap, right? And as far as we know, I mean, other than Clint answering his phone and it's his wife, we don't really get much. Like, Thanos nukes the fucking mansion, and then we've got this struggle happening. And then
I thought, like, at that moment, I thought they had seriously, like, I thought that was the death blow. I thought they'd snapped just in time, and then all of these Avengers, especially the ones at the mansion, were dead. I thought that was it.
We thought Ant-Man caught it to the face because he was looking out the window, goes, "I think it worked."
And all seems lost, and Cap kind of pulls himself out of the rubble and is kind of standing on this ridge alone, facing Thanos' armada. Mm-hmm. And look, I'm like
chills right now while you're talking about
40.
Yes.
The computer screens went stupid putting that as their background, or they will as soon as they can get it. Like I know so many people who are like, nope, new desktop right there. Yeah, that's it.
Because we get that moment of because they come out, him and Tony come out the rubble, and Thor is just kind of standing there on the thing because at this point they're going after the gauntlet, and Thanos is just sitting in the crater of what they just created.
Yeah,
and they're like, "What's he doing?" Thor's like, "Absolutely nothing." And you just get that moment of, "Well, let's go to work" kind of moment.
Something we kind of forgot to mention from Dark World is Thor got Mjolnir back.
He did.
So he's dual wielding hammers right now.
Yeah. Yep. Which awesome moment of using the lightning to get into his battle uniform with a sick braid in his long, because his beard's super long in this movie. So
and it was also kind of a nice point for him because it proved to him that he was still worthy.
Well, it was the culmination of his arc when he got the hammer back.
The conversation that he had with Frigga was just another one of those really quiet, really touching moments where she's like, "Nope, you're not my son, but you're my son."
Mm-hmm. You're a different version of the son that I know, and whatever happened, you're still my son.
Yep. Right. And you can't save me, but just go save your world. And like that, I mean, again, that was just like, I love you too, Frigga.
And like I said, one of my favorite, going back to the battle, and we get definitely we could arguably call the Trinity of the Avengers.
Yeah,
is Iron Man, Cap, and Thor going 3-on-1 on Thanos. Showing that even without the gauntlet, Thanos is a motherfucker because he is holding his own and winning against the three of them.
Well, and that's the great thing about showing the Trinity. I mean, those are your core Avengers.
Yeah.
And they always have been, they always will be. And having the three of them with nobody else, to me, that's the Avengers. And that's just, I saw that scene. And it was just.
And that fight had I'm not an audible person, honestly, especially out in public in a theater. not the one screaming at the screen or anything like that. I had an audible moment during that fight when Thor's pinned down, Mjolnir starts floating and goes off screen, and my mind's going all kind of different places. I was hoping for my boy Jerry. I was hoping for a horseman to catch that hammer just for you. But then Cap caught Mjolnir, and I was like, I audibly in the theater, oh shit!
Oh, dude, there was applause.
Dude, it was great.
And there's so much about those. See, I was wondering when we were going to get that because we saw a little bit of that with him barely moving it, and Thor's just like, I knew it. Like,
what movie did that happen?
Ultron.
I'm going to throw my phone.
You're being serious.
We know we don't talk about Age of Ultron much, but damn it, there was some moments.
There was a lot of good in that movie. Shut up.
There was.
I'll fight you. No, but then that moment that Sean's talking about happens, and you get the hey Cap, can you hear me? Hey Cap, it's Sam, can you hear me? And I'm like, again, just goosebumps, and the portals just go ballistic, and everyone like they throw like fucking Howard the Duck.
If you've been in a Marvel movie, you're in that scene.
Every people.
I'm sure the
pour
Collector's
out.
in there somewhere. I'm sure everybody that's been in Collector, no, because he died before the snap. But
everyone who got snapped away comes through. All the armies of Wakanda, the Ravagers, is everyone.
I mean,
the Nova Corps was there with their ships.
They could have maybe given us Quicksilver back. I know he died before the snap, but it's the Infinity Stones. You can do anything you want to. But I was a little meh. But it's just they're always shitting on Wanda too. Like it's just.
Well, she had her moment.
She got her shine in this
film.
Great
moment.
She did.
Yeah,
she came out of her shell. They took the shackles off on this one and unleashed her, and it was amazing. And I mean, look, and then what happens in the film. The battle is going to be what the battle is going to be. There's some moments where they look like they have the upper hand.
They have a huge keep away from Thanos.
There's a great scene with Peter where he's going through trying to get the gauntlet, and then you get this really cool scene where Captain Marvel comes down, and she's just looking at Pete, and she's like, "You got something for me?" Which,
so this could have been a cheesy fucking moment, but Brie Larson nails this line, guys.
Absolutely.
Hey Pete, how are you? I hear you got something for me. It could have been so fucking cheesy, but she nailed it so well that you were like, yeah, fuck yeah, give it to her.
Yeah.
You know?
and then you get this really great A-Force type moment where all the Marvel heroines are like teaming up to just push it through. Like I said, the battle has its ebbs and flows, and the good guys win, as the good guys tend to do in these types of stories. But it's not without cost. Tony has to get the gauntlet. He snaps it, and he essentially reverses it. Like he does.
Well, there's a moment between him and Doctor Strange there,
right?
Because he had asked Doctor Strange. He said, "Is this what happens?" And Doctor Strange says, "I can't tell you, or it won't happen." And he's looking at Doctor Strange right before he goes in to fight Thanos the last time. Yeah, and he looks at Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange nods at him. It's just a little, almost imperceptible nod.
Like he knows what's going to happen.
He knows what Tony wants to do, and he's like, yep, you're on the right path.
One way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Tony goes in, and you're like, he can't take on... I mean, out of all of the three, I mean, his armor's already kind of battered. Him taking on... We've already proven that Thanos can take him one-on-one, and he's like, what is he going to do? And he backs up, and he's got the stones, so...
Yeah, Thanos goes to snap. He says, I'm inevitable, and when he snaps, none of the stones are in the gauntlet.
Yeah.
And then Tony looks at him, and you see all the stones converge on his gauntlet.
Yeah.
And he says, I am Iron Man. And
Thanks, nanobots.
Yeah. Right. And which was a great time that they're using the Iron Man made gauntlet. So, of course, it can naturally sync up into the Iron Man armor. It was a brilliant move.
And then all of Thanos and his army turns to dust, much like he does to everybody else. And, which was cool. I wish we had gotten to see some more of the Black Order more than we did in this, because they were extremely underutilized.
And man stepped on the big guy.
Right.
I can never remember her character's name. Michonne from The Walking Dead. Michonne from The Walking Dead. Okoye. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she got Approximately Midnight's husband. I think she, in the initial women rush, I think he straight up lanced him through the chest.
Yeah, but they're just
your boys got wrecked.
Yeah, they're just afterthoughts in this.
But when he snaps, Thanos just goes and sits down, and he's like, almost like, okay, it was inevitable. He totally accepted it in that moment that, hey, I got beat by the better team in this round. And there was another moment that happened in this. There were so many moments in the fight, and you don't have time to discuss them all. But when Peter shows up right after the Sam moment, and Peter's fighting, and he finally finds Tony, and he's like, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe what happened!" And he's just being Peter, and he's babbling on, and you expect Tony to say, "Shut up and get your head in the fight," and Tony just walks over and gives him a hug. Yep. Great throwback moment to Homecoming.
So we're not there yet. In Homecoming. Yeah, he thought he was going for the hug. Like, no, we're not there yet.
Yeah, and great throwback to that scene in Homecoming, and then
very few actors have I ever watched and go, "Oh, that's Peter Parker," more than Tom Holland.
Oh yeah, he is straight up Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He is the best casting we've had for that character.
It was just like the most emotional scene for him because he had already lost Uncle Ben. We hadn't really lived through the emotion of that again because, but he had finally kind of found that in Tony. Yeah. And
they basically Uncle Ben Tony. Yeah, Tony, we still have the Uncle Ben thing and the great power, great responsibility thing, but now Peter's got another motivation, and it's something we've seen in the movie without giving us that origin again.
And I don't even remember if we mentioned it, but Pepper comes in with the rescue armor.
Yeah, she does.
She does. Yeah, like at the beginning, whenever you see Tony and his daughter, she's wearing a helmet, and it's something that Tony's been working on for her, and she comes in with a full set of armor and everything, and it's glorious.
It is. It's and then that culminates at the end of the film when they're all kind of. The entire team, everybody who's dear to Tony's heart, is kind of centered around him as he's taking his last breaths. Yeah. Pete, Tom Holland is there and just pouring out emotion. I'm crying buckets somewhere into my popcorn. Pepper comes and just moves him and just like let me have my moment and tells him it's okay.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah, we're going to be okay. And after that, everybody kind of goes their own way. They try to go back and rebuild the wreckage. They try to go back and rebuild their lives. Thor goes off with the Asgardians to make Jerry happy because they're going to do an Asgardians of the Galaxy movie, and he's finally going to get Beta Ray Bill. I'm going to speak that into existence, into the universe.
I want to believe for you, Jerry. I want to believe.
In the last moments of the film, they have to go put the stones back in the same place, like we've kind of already talked about. Cap does something. He goes back in time, and we don't really know. I need to go watch the film again. I'm not sure which comes first. He inevitably goes back and he lives a life with Agent Carter, and which is what his girl, what he always wanted to do. He gets that happy ending, and I don't know if he lived that before he put the stone back in place or afterwards.
After
he
mentioned, once I put the stones back, I was like, maybe there's one more thing I can do. Okay. So he did it after.
So that kind of sets up two things if he did it afterwards, because that means that nothing gets reset. I went back because Jerry made a really good point in our group text that Peggy got married after that. So I went and did some digging. We don't know the guy's name.
Yep.
All we know about Peggy Carter's husband is that he is a soldier that returned from the war and stayed really, really quiet. So with the idea that nothing that Cap could do could change the present of that timeline, the dude just stayed in the shadows.
That version of Cap stayed in the shadows and lived his life, and let the frozen version of Cap get unfrozen and thawed out and do his thing.
Right. And that had to be that had to be a heartbreaking thing, because he knows that Bucky is actually still alive. He's being tortured. All these characters, all of this stuff is happening, and he can't do anything about it. That just, to me, that speaks to he trusts that nothing is going to change. He knows the Avengers are going to do what the Avengers do. He's just going to stay quiet, and he shows up at the end of the film as Old Man Cap and hands off the shield to Sam. And I think Bucky knew, because Bucky has that moment where he's looking off in the right direction. In my brain, in the past somewhere, they've had that conversation. Right. He's just like, hey, be watching.
Also, when he's getting on the platform to go, Bucky tells him goodbye. Yeah. He knows it's only 5 seconds, but Bucky makes sure he tells him goodbye.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just a see you in a second, because it's only supposed to be 5 seconds that he's gone.
He knows. He knows.
He knows that. He knows Steve's not coming back.
And I can't wait for Far From Home. to see what happens. Pete goes back to school. He sees Ned, who is not Genki, who is Genki, but not Genki.
Genki, not Genki.
We can presume, a lot of people are going, oh, well, we don't know that everybody got snapped, and that doesn't make sense. How can everybody could get snapped? And
this is one of those moments of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to assume that his friends got snapped, and maybe not. It may be a Marvel fake out.
Yeah, I think
those
it's misdirect.
it very well could be that, hey, this trailer, the people that you saw going on that trip aren't all the really people going on that trip.
I mean, it's Mysterio involved. You can't believe anything.
Yeah, we don't we don't know if it's going to take place in the past or if it's going to take place in the future. I mean, really, we won't know till we see it.
And apparently, if what I read, I think last night or earlier this morning is true, we're supposed to be getting a new trailer for Far From Home tomorrow, so it's probably going to have a lot of stuff that's post-Endgame.
Yeah, because they said like the next trailer has Endgame spoilers.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're going to get some connection, and like, the directors, they've already admitted to the altering trailer, using footage that's not in the movie, which you can go back and watch all the trailers and see scenes that aren't in there or even altered. Mm-hmm. So you can't trust them anyway. Yeah. What's interesting, I'm not trying to spark anything between you two, Craig and Jerry again, is that in one interview, one of them hinted at the connection with Far From Home is Mysterio being from an alternate timeline.
Okay.
So maybe there was. I'm not trying to spark. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reality is the
timey-wimey shit, but and they could be fucking with us because they like to mess with fans about that because they want to keep you on your toes. But I can't wait for that trailer because I think it's going to be very interesting.
Well, I mean, there's a few things that could happen. There could be an alternate timeline. Fine, whatever. We'll just have to live with it. Well, because there's going to have to be some consequences to time travel.
Yeah,
right.
There has to be some consequences to it, or every time there's a problem, they're going to go back. They're going to get the stones. They're going to time travel, and they're going to fix it. So
exactly,
there's going to be consequences that they can't change, and that's why they're going to not fuck with it anymore.
Right.
And just for those of you who are keeping your eyes peeled, I think some of those consequences are going to take place in the TV shows.
Yes.
You're getting
the Loki
WandaVision,
show
you're
and
getting
Wanda.
Loki show. They just announced 2 more. You're going to get
we're getting
Ghost
Falcon
Driver and
Ghost Driver.
But the cool thing about it is they're using the same actor and essentially the same setting that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. used for his Ghost Rider's Hulu series. And I want to say, I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been that show that's anything that's going on in the MCU, they usually have some kind of connection going on in their series.
Yep.
I think it started with Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really interesting how they handle it. If there's a time skip for them, who gets dusted, if they, try to explain what the other characters have been doing for 5 years. And
I want to say the new season just started.
Yeah.
So one of the theories that they have is that for Far From Home is that it's actually a prequel, and the bus ride that Peter's on is that they're on when he jumps off for Infinity War.
He's coming back.
It's on their coming back. So that's one theory. I don't think it's going to be a prequel.
We'll find out in 2 months.
Yeah. I kind of like the thought of it being
after
Endgame.
Because they are still calling it the end of Phase 3.
And the reason I think they're calling it the end of Phase 3 is because they are going to have the post-credit scenes or whatever that are going to be setting up what happens in Phase 4 in the start of the next big story.
Well, that and it's the falling moment at the end of every novel, right?
Yeah.
Like you said,
it's the epilogue.
There has to be consequences, and you're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah. And
so
one other thing before we move on.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that consequences from the 5-year and them resetting it that you talked about the guy that was talking about his date and now is in a new relationship while his husband's home.
Yeah. What does he do now?
What do you do now? And that's just one small example. What about the fact that you were, let's assume, short 50% of your farmers for the past 5 years?
Yeah.
And your food production's down. I mean, there is a whole, I think Marvel will probably gloss over a lot of that and just be like, hey, they fixed this and everything's great now. But there are some very big character things that they could do within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially in the television shows where you can really get in and delve into that stuff some.
Sorry, just remembered something I caught the second time around that I didn't the first time. When Steve is outside Peggy's office and they're having a conversation, she mentions they're trying to track down I forget the rank, but the space soldier with the last name of Braddock. So I think that was a Captain Britain reference.
Yeah.
It definitely
I didn't catch that the first time. They're dropping these hints, I think,
Yeah.
for what we got coming. And y'all mentioned Iron Lad. I'm still hoping Iron Man inspires a intelligent black woman to build her own armor set. I'm hoping for Iron Heart.
Yeah,
to come after her.
And something that we had talked about yesterday, a lot of times with their True Believers that they release, they kind of tie in with what's going on in the MCU sometimes. Sometimes they tie in with what... One of the theories that they had before Endgame came out is one of the True Believers that they had was Black Knight joining the Avengers.
Oh.
And since that didn't happen in this movie, maybe it's, reference to them bringing all those... was it MI6?
They've been really quiet on Phase 4
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
far. We don't know a whole lot about Phase 4.
The Eternals.
I do believe that we're going to see Robert Downey Jr. back in the movies, not as a person, but as a voice. I think he's going to be an AI for whoever takes over the iron suits, just like he does in the
contingency
comic.
plan for
He's
everything,
downloaded his consciousness into an AI, and Friday is no longer Friday, it's Tony, just like in the comic books when he was dead, quote unquote.
Oh, so that was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, remember that led to fucking Benjamin Franklin and
Yeah.
all that madness.
And then the Russo brothers have said that they purposely left the ending with Steve a little bit vague because it leaves the door open if they ever want to bring him back. There's ways they can bring him back with it, which is why they didn't just straight up kill him off. And then you move Thor into space. Probably going to get another Guardians of the Galaxy movie that he'll be a part of that team, and then he's going to splinter off, and we're probably going to get an Asgardians trilogy, would be my guess, an Asgardians of the Galaxy, at least a single movie, I would think, that's straight up that. But as Caleb said, that they had to move Thor off of Earth to make room for Captain Marvel to lead the Avengers because they have very similar power sets. What she did to Thanos' ship, Thor could have just as easily done.
Right.
Had he chosen to do that instead of trying to fight Thor one-on-one.
Right.
So.
Well, all right. I think it's safe to say that we all enjoyed the shit out of this film.
We did.
But let's move on a little bit. If you haven't seen it, we implore you to go run as fast as you can. We will catch you. We're the Spoiler Man.
And spoilers off of our Facebook page now.
Yeah,
I would say it's free to open to talk about now once we've posted this episode.
We'll give it a few hours, and then either tonight or tomorrow morning we are going to unleash the dam.
Yeah.
The waters will flow. But enough of this movie nonsense. They're fun. They're great. They're cool and all, but you wouldn't have them if you didn't have any comics. So let's talk about some comics. This is my favorite part of the show. I love it because comics are cool.
Comics are cool.
So let's talk about some books. Craig, what did you read this week, man?
So I'm breaking from our format a little bit. We usually talk about something that you can go to the store and pick up off the shelf.
Yeah.
My book this week was a book I funded on Kickstarter from a friend of ours, Rich Woodall, who actually grew up here in Arkansas and then moved to New Hampshire or Connecticut or something. He lives on the East Coast somewhere. Sorry, Rich, I don't remember exactly where you told me you live. But he wrote this, he colored it, he did the letters on it. The art was by Dennis Hart. And the name of the book is Space Force. And this is a book that is 100% satirical. I don't care what side of the politics you're on. He's going to poke a little bit of fun at both. Mm-hmm. And it's about our commander-in-chief wanting to build a Space Force. And it starts off with the most absurd thing that you could imagine, which is a reality TV star as president of the United States. And it just gets more and more absurd as it goes. And there's even one point in the comic book where he stops and he says, no shit, this is really what was said. And he has Trump giving a speech, and then he comes back and he goes, now back to the make-believe shit. So the art in this book, let me back up just a little bit, because the art's very cartoony, but it's very well done, like caricatures of people. Like if you go down to the pier or something and have an artist draw a caricature of yourself, you get this kind of very cartoony version of yourself. That's the way this is done. It's got a little bitty, like almost midget looking Hillary Clinton in it that has been arrested, and they are going to put her on the space station they're building as a prisoner. She's prisoner number 30,000 in E, something like that. Anyways, it starts off with Trump sitting in the Oval Office, and he's on the phone with Ivanka, and he's saying, "Who's your daddy?" to his daughter, and it just gets weirder. And then you hear his kid on the floor playing and talking about alien invasions, and he's like, "How do you expect me to have sexy time when you're down there talking about alien invasions? I thought I got rid of all of those bastards with the wall." And then he goes, "Not those aliens, Daddy." And it goes down, and it's not Baron,
Right.
it's Junior.
Don Jr.
Yeah, is on the floor in the Oval Office playing with toys. It just gets more and more absurd as it goes. It is so fantastic. I have not laughed out loud at a book this hard since Mark Russell did Flintstones.
Wow.
It's that satirical. It's that funny. I laugh through the whole thing. And like I said, they make fun of both sides. It's not just poking. It's literally in your face about the absurdity of American politics over the past going on 4 years now. So I did talk to Rich and to find out where you can get this book.
Mm-hmm.
And you can email him at Woodall, WOODALL.rich@gmail.com to get them. Little caveat, I'm in the back of it. I am in the book. He's got another Kickstarter going on right now, which is Savage Dragon and Johnny Raygun crossover, and a Sergeant Werewolf book, and he's running them simultaneously on the same Kickstarter. You can find the link on our Facebook group page.
Okay.
If you have had fun, if you're into politics at all, and you just want a funny look at what's been going on, it's been so serious over the past 4 years, and rightfully so. There's a lot of shit that's been happening for the past 4 years in this country. But to be able to take a look back and just kind of laugh at the absurdity of some of the shit going on, we've all got to be able to laugh at ourselves, or else you just cry. And that's what this book kind of does. So I'm going to give it to Caleb to read because I know he'll enjoy it. So get out there. Email Rich if this sounds like anything you want to.
It reminds me so much of Mike Norton.
Yeah.
Of his Little Donnie book. And some of the cartooning is a little bit the same. You get more of a political, like his art looks way more, like you said, character and political cartoons than Mike's does, but it's kind of in that same vein, and it just, no blemish is left.
Yeah, I mean, so
unmessed with.
Yeah, so it comes down to it in Trump's going, well, why do I care about aliens from space coming? And he starts calling them Space ISIS. And then Donnie Jr.'s like, oh, well, they're coming for our gold. And he's like, what? They're coming for our gold? And Donnie Jr.'s like, how am I going to eat without my golden fork? And it just fucking goes on and on, right? And come to find out, there's a wooden camel that's on the space station that's full of Space ISIS Muslims that break out. There's anal aliens. They call them aliens or something like that. There's so much fucking going on in this book. It's so absurd. And then, I'm not going to spoil all of it because you just have to read it. But yeah, it's so much fun. Like literally laughed out loud through the whole book while I was reading it. So
comics should be funny every once in a while.
Well, again, there's so much serious going on in the world of politics in the world right now.
Politics. I think you just wanted to rephrase
it. Right now that it's easy to just be upset by it. And there's a lot of things you should be upset by. Whatever you believe.
Yeah. I fall into that a lot. Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to sit back and laugh. And like I said, it starts off with the most absurd thing and doesn't get any less absurd as it goes. So
I can't wait to read this.
Yeah. You'll have to let me know what you think about it.
Oh, I will by the end of the day, I guarantee.
Okay.
Because I do that. Like, I fall into that trap a lot. Like, I'm somebody who lives in the margins, gay dude in Arkansas. And sometimes it just gets a little overwhelming. And
sure.
I have to back up. And that's what I love about, what Rich is doing. It's what I love about, what the Little Donnie book does. Sometimes it reminds you that, hey, just breathe for a second.
Well, I mean, again, it's kind of what the Flintstones did. It was just satire of the world of politics and talked about different social commentary going on at the time. mean, he doesn't even remember Betsy DeVoe's name in the book. And he asks her how much money they have for schooling and stuff like that, and for how much money. He's like, oh, who cares? Just keep the sports going. That's all I care about. Fund the rest to the space station. And the space station's literally one of his old hotels that they've turned into a space station. And he's going to make the aliens pay for it as soon as they find the aliens. It's fucking great.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to have fun with this. You good?
I'm good.
All right, Jerry.
Enjoy it.
Brother, what'd you read this week, man?
Okay, so War of the Realms is going on right now.
Really?
And as I stated, I'm on like half of the titles that are going on in War of the Realms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through one of those today. And to no one's surprise, because I'm a broken record, I'm going to talk about Venom. What kind of excited me about this, and I was a little worried because I've been loving Donny Cates' Venom so much, is you actually, for I think it's 3 issues, you're going to have Cullen Bunn on it, which we know how we all feel about Cullen Bunn. Him and Rick Remender were the ones that pulled me into Venom with Flash Thompson. So I kind of knew that it was going to be in good hands. So you've got Cullen Bunn writing and Aban Coelho illustrating, colored by Andres Mosa and lettered by VC's Clayton Cowles. The story basically picks up right after issue 12 of Venom, where Eddie and the Venom symbiote are separate. The Venom symbiote basically saved Dylan from his dad or whatever, which is, we find out, not really his dad. Eddie is his dad. And then the symbiote just leaves. So it's basically leaving Eddie to take care of Dylan. And with everything that's going on Midgard right now is not easy.
Bananas.
Yeah. So they're basically, ducking for cover as all of these demons and stuff are coming out of portals. It shows, the map of War of the Realms. I think this is part of Act 2, so issue 2 begins right before number 3. They duck out into this warehouse where you see 3 dark elves, and they're about to attack some civilians. And Eddie steps in to try to intervene, and without the Venom symbiote, I mean, he's still a super strong guy, but they basically mop the floor with him. He gets stabbed. They kind of run off to because the humans that they were going after start running away. So some of them go after them. Another one finds Dylan, and I guess they thought that they were done with Eddie because they stabbed him, but he sneaks up behind this one and snaps his fucking neck. They make it to this point, which is one of Rex Strickland's safe houses. He was the actual symbiote that was connected to Noel in the first book. As they're making their way there, the 3 witches that were in that first issue that were blocking Doctor Strange Mystical Arts see him surviving with Dylan, and one of them's like, I think I'm gonna have a little bit of fun. I'm gonna basically give him purpose as a warrior of rage or whatever. And when they get to this little safe house, she pretty much materializes in front of them, and Eddie pulls a gun on her, and she's just like, you need something to combat these things from, playing off of that role of like, oh, let me help you, but there's a twist to it. So she gives him what is called a dreamstone, and it's a treasure that will make your wildest desires come true, and it'll give you what you want. So reluctantly he takes it and transforms himself into this crazy magical Asgardian version of Venom. But it's like, since it's not a sentient thing, he's completely in control of it. Mm-hmm. He absolutely breaks the deal with the witch, slices her arm off. She gets pissed and ports out, and he decides that he's gonna leave Dylan here where it's safe and see if he can go help some people. He makes it out. He finds these people that are like being tortured by dark elves and trolls and everything, and he steps in and just absolutely fucking obliterates them. And they kind of have this cool moment where like he's talking about like, oh, this is my voice now that's in my head. It's not, you know, the symbiote that's making me feel all this anger and all this hate, which is presumably could still be coming from the crystal. And someone asks him who he is, and you know, he starts off by saying we are. And then he's like, no, that's not quite right. He's like, I am Venom. So there's, you know, just showing that there's not two entities there. And then at the end of the book, we cut back to the witch. And, you know, she's like bleeding her arms off. And she has found someone else. And she's like, basically like, oh, I fucked up, you know. I need someone else to fight him. And, you know, you're what I've got. So she hands Dreamstone off to someone else, which brings me to one of my favorite villains that Cullen Bunn and Rick Remender used, and it's Jack-O-Lantern.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he was a psychotic, murdering asshole in the Cullen Bunn run, and it was kind of cool because, you know, in superhero stories, a lot of times, whenever you sort of try to implement like a horror element into it, it doesn't always work. But we know how well Cullen Bunn handles horror,
Right.
and like he made that character absolutely terrifying.
Right.
So for the next 2 issues, we get to see whatever this Dreamstone does to Jack-O-Lantern.
Nice.
And you know how it all goes down. So I'm really interested. And something else that was kind of weird was, you know, they had a Venom cameo in the new War of the Realms, so I'm wondering how that's going to, you know, if those two things are going to cross over with what's going on, you know, here. But
hopefully they're tying it all
I
together.
think they will. So it's one of those things, how much can you fit into one thing? Because there's only like 57 different War of the Realms tie-ins.
Right.
And they're trying to do a good job. And I think Aaron's he's bridging the gap well of knowing what's happening in the tie-ins and including little blips of them in the main story. There's no way you can do everything.
yeah.
And to that point, we were talking online, and some other people were like, "Well, you know, I'm enjoying the main series, but I have no idea like if I'm missing stuff or not." And in general, you're not.
Yeah.
You can read these, and you should if you want. If you're
That's
interested
what
in
I
the characters.
learned years ago with these big crossover events. Read the main title if you're interested in the event.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to read all of it, read all of it. If you're on other books that it's happening in and you want to read them, read them. If not, you can skip till when it's over.
Right.
And not because generally speaking, it goes back to status quo afterward, and the regular writer starts writing again.
Right.
Well, and like in, you know, in most cases, it's like, okay, we've got them writing this, and this is good, but they're written different in the main. But the interesting thing about this is the Venom that was in War of the Realms was different. So it kind of leads me to believe that it's the symbiote out there trying to like prove that he can
be
hero.
okay without.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
It's an interesting
Awesome.
take, because if he does that, he's not a symbiote anymore.
yeah.
Right.
So he's
I
just
mean,
an
it,
organism.
it has its own consciousness
Right.
right now and everything. So it's
Right.
so it's interesting.
So how's the
for
art
sure.
in the book? I know you showed us that one picture. What do you think about that?
It was great. I honestly, I can't remember what I've read, but it's definitely familiar. And I mean, it blends really well with what Ryan Stegman's been doing. They capture the characters almost as well as he does.
Nice.
With the art and
It's
everything.
always nice when you have even a substitute creative team and you don't feel like you're being taken out of the book.
Right.
And you
because
know,
it's a different
honestly,
creative team.
I know at one point after they finished the first story arc, they had a different artist on it, and this might be the same artist,
okay.
and that's probably why it looks similar. But the new symbiote form that he has right now is pretty badass. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm all in. I like it. I love it.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to
You
jump
want some
into
more of it?
Yes.
Did you just go country?
He said he liked it and he loved it. I couldn't leave that hanging out there.
Wow.
I
Yes, you,
tried so hard. I can't rise above it.
I know we're in your home, but you're off the show now.
So I'm going to jump in and go next. So I read a book this week that I really, really enjoyed, and it kind of took me by surprise. It was something that I didn't pre-order. I just kind of grabbed it off the shelf. It was one of those that the cover kind of grabbed me, and I really, really dug it. And the book is called Ghost Tree. It's from IDW. It's written by Bobby Curnow. It is drawn wonderfully by Mr. Simone Gann. Colored by Ian Herring with Becca Kinsey. Also, letters by Chris Morey. And I dropped my phone. That's what noise you just heard, because I'm a professional like that. So the book starts us off, and there are really two characters that you need to really know to understand this book. The main character, whose name is Brant, he's at least half Japanese. He may be full Japanese. I'm not sure. You don't really get a good look at his parents in this, but his
I think
grandparents.
it's implied that he's half.
Yeah, his kind of, because I think he says his mom married an American man.
His dad married an American
woman. Yeah, so that's really all you need to know.
Yeah.
For this character, he grows up in Japan at least. So at some point he was the product of a single parent home,
right,
or something bad happened in his past. And so this book starts off, Brant as a child is playing at his grandfather's. He's kind of in the backyard. His grandfather, he calls him Oji-chan, is just this little old kind of withered Japanese man. And Brant's a typical kid, right? Like, he's out in the yard playing, he's fighting space aliens, he's reenacting the Avengers for all we know. He's just having a really good time. And his grandfather's watching him play, and as he looks out in the forest, this little cloaked figure kind of, like, you see a blip of him, and he kind of disappears. Or it disappears. It's not really gendered any kind of way. So Oji-chan, Grandpa, walks out in the woods, and Brant's just like, what are you doing, old man? Why are you taking a hike? And they just kind of keeps walking. And they get out to the middle of this forest, and finally Grandpa kind of like snaps out of it, and he's like, oh, hey Brant, you found me out here. He's like, yeah, I just kind of followed you. This wasn't hard. You were leading me out here. And this grandfather kind of tells Brant a little bit of this mythos. This forest has a connection to the family, to the lineage, and he tells Brant to promise him two things. One, that he'll never lose his kind of childlike wonder, that he'll always be this person, and two, that he will revisit him 10 years later in this very spot after he's died. Little Brant's just like, what? Like, that's a weird thing to ask. What do you mean, Grandpa? And he doesn't really explain it, and you see this cloaked figure in the background again. Then the book, we get a little bit of time jump, assumably 10 years. Brant has moved to America. His father's married to an American woman. He's
That's
gone.
more than 10 years, because it's 10 years after Grandpa dies.
Oh, is okay.
Yeah.
See, that was interesting. So I guess
he's an adult now. Yeah, he's a married adult, and
kind of graduated, and he's visiting Grandma.
Yeah.
He comes over to kind of kick it with the family, and this is, like I said, after Grandpa's died. He doesn't really reference anything about the childhood. He doesn't really know what's going on. He just really wants his family. So he's greeted at the airport by a cousin. They're kind of hanging out and talking. They go see Grandma, who is really concerned that he would be visiting without his wife. Mm-hmm. And the book drops these little hints that all is not well in Brant's home. He's having some marital issues. He's not sure if the wife is going to be there when he comes back. There's just, he's got a lot of baggage that he's bringing back to his family's home, to the place where his family's legacy is rooted. And they have this really poignant conversation. There's a lot of family dynamics at play, to a point that it kind of gets on under Brant's skin a little bit. And he needs to go, he's like, I've got, like, Grandma, like, I love you, but I got to take a hike. I need to go outside, smoke a cigarette, hang out on the front porch for a minute. And Brant sees something in the woods. And this same woods that he played in as a kid that he follows Grandpa out to. And he follows him out to this tree, and he meets his grandfather. And it's his grandfather's ghost underneath this ghost tree. And the grandfather's like, I knew you would do this. And Brant doesn't remember this. He didn't commit it to his memory as a child. And the grandpa kind of tells him, 10 years ago I made you promise that you'd meet me back under this tree, and now I'm kind of sad that you did. And Brant's like, well, that's a twist. Why would you be sad that I would meet you here after you promised me to? He's like, well, the grandpa said, well, I've learned something. I always thought that this tree, this forest, had something, like it was something special to our family. It was, each generation there is a child born that can see these ghosts, and I thought it meant something to do with our ancestry, with our connection to this land, but it's really not. Of course, it ties into a little bit of the ancestor worship of Japanese culture, but he said it's not quite that. It's more of like a trap. Like, yes, you can see me as a ghost, and also you can see all of these other people, these other members of our family who are long past. And the thing is we're not here to necessarily guide anybody. We're just kind of trapped.
Mhm.
We've got stuff that we never dealt with, probably family stuff, probably things in our lives that we just never could get past, and we're kind of stuck here, and we don't know what to do. And I'm kind of sad that you're here now. And of course, this is blowing Brant's mind. He's like, "Oh shit, no!" So I can see ghosts. I fulfilled a promise to my grandfather that I couldn't remember, and also now he's mad about it.
Right.
So there's a lot happening. While this conversation is happening, there's this little furry eyeball of a sprite that jumps on his shoulder, and he's like, "Oh shit, what's this?" And Grandpa's like, "Yeah, it's just it's fine. Don't worry about it." Back in the woods, you see a woman emerge, and you don't know who this woman is. There's been nothing alluding to who this woman might be. There's not a lot going on. Maybe his mother. I mean, there's some baggage. Like I said, he was born, raised by his father. His father marries an American and moves off. I
You're right. He may not be half Japanese.
I suspect that this could be his mother.
Yeah.
That has also passed away in some sense. We'll find out in issue 2.
Yeah.
But the story ends with kind of this woman going, "There's the boy," and so this is leading into it. I love books like this. I love books that are emotional. That they kind of follow the iceberg theory, to where what you see is above the water is just a little bit of the emotion and the character arc, the history that lies underneath. That's Hemingway kind of came up with the iceberg theory and ran with it, and it's what he's famous for. This book does so much of that. Like there's so much going on with the relationship between the grandmother and the late husband, with Brant and his wife, with the cousins and the family, and the ties to this connection to the earth, this connection to the lineage of life and death that this family has. I wish like this issue had have been like a 200-page graphic novel, and I would have eaten it up. And I ate this up. I devoured it. I've read it 4 times since then. I'm afraid that what is going to happen is it's going to become more plot driven and less character driven. Who knows, right? Like I'm going to check out issue 2,
right?
But at least for issue 1, there is packed with poignancy in the pages of this book. It is emotive. It hits you in a way like it makes you feel something, even if that something is kind of confused. It's a thing that makes you feel it, and it drives home this point to everybody to talk about where we come from, where we're going, the expectations of our family, the expectations of our culture, what that means for us, how we make our own path in the world. And it really struck a chord with me, at least. I'm curious to see what this ghost figure is, because the ghost figure that was hooded all throughout is not really, you don't know what this is. It's not one of the ancestors. He's got a big hole in his face that I think that little fuzzy eyeball sprite would neatly fit in, so I think that has something to do with it. But we'll find out. When I say things like the more literary graphic novels, the art really makes me think of that. What Simon Gain does, I'm pretty sure he's using a fairly thick nib pen. He's got some really clean lines. He does some great texture work. There's one scene of a tree. It's the ghost tree when it's finally first revealed, that the amount of texture that he pours in that page is insane. Yeah, he is an incredible artist. His cartooning style it's kind of that next level storytelling. It's not. I mean, we're not talking about Bernie Wrightson level detail here by any means, but it's the way that he uses his line. Every scratch, every point is purposefully done. His economy of line is insane, and I expect to see big things in the book. I don't know how we would do in superhero books, but at least for those kind of stories that I like, the stuff that you might get from Drawn and Quarterly or publishers like that, maybe a little bit of a Peter Bagg influence. I dig it. I think this kid's got it, whatever it is, so to speak. And it's fun. I'm curious to see what happens in issue 2. So,
I read it as well, and I enjoyed both the art and the story. I thought it was intriguing. It pulled me in. I'm interested to see what happens in the second issue.
Nice.
And depending on what happens with the second issue, I'll see if I stay on it.
Got any wild and crazy theories?
No, I pretty much agree with you. I think it's going to be the mom. I kind of forgot about that, but when you said that I was like, oh yeah, because he did reference his dad's wife as by her name, so that's not his mom. So,
right.
Yeah.
Grandma's cool.
Grandma is pretty cool. She she keeps telling him, "Nope, you gotta work this out with your wife. Family's important, that sort of thing."
Yeah, she kind of has this old patriarchal view of marriage,
Yeah.
like a man without a wife is not a man at all.
Yeah.
But once you dig in a little bit, that's just kind of surface level stuff
Yeah.
that she's just used to saying.
Right.
Her and grandpa or her husband, they didn't fight, but they had
Private conversations.
So, and there's this moment to where he's talking to grandma, and he's like, he's kind of opening up to her, and he's like, I'm trying, I'm having trouble. Like, let me be honest with you, I'm not here on a business trip. I'm trying to I'm having problems at home, and I'm trying. And she's just kind of saying, your grandfather and I didn't always get along either, and it's good you try.
Yes.
And it's just those little moments,
Right.
like the dialogue is just wonderfully packed with.
Right.
With texture and with relevancy and history that, in a few words, what Bobby Kernell accomplishes is impressive.
And he seems to understand Japanese culture.
He does. And they had I forget the name of it, but they actually had a consultant on this book to make sure they kind of got things right.
Okay.
Which was nice. I think that's, if you want to talk about authenticity and authority to be able to tell these stories, I think that's a smart move.
I think so
to
too.
at least get somebody who's, if you're going to write a story about gay people and you're not gay, pass your story around to a few gays.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to write a story where, if you're as a white man writing about black characters, get some black folk to read your books and make sure that, hey, like, you're not just saying these things from a perspective that is wrong because
Right.
you're not a part of that world.
Right.
It's impressive. I like it. I'm gonna check out issue 2, and
For
it's
sure.
IDW, so it'll probably be like a 4-issue story, 6-issue
Won't
maybe.
be- yeah.
So, Sean,
Sure.
buddy, tell me what you read this week, man.
All right. Well, we'll get into it real quick. I know we're pressed for time.
We're good.
But Avengers number 18, continuing the War of the Realms. Did y'all know Marvel had their own Justice League?
Yeah.
Because I sure as shit didn't. I messaged y'all about this. I didn't know if Jason Aaron was doing a deep pull or creating some new characters. It's basically an introductory issue, but like I said, like this is kind of like what I liked about Tom King's run when he was pulling in these characters I never heard of. And with Tom King, I kind of knew they weren't new.
Right.
Like Kite Man making him important. So I was like, as we get introductions right from the jump, you see a teacher who hears the chaos going on in War of the Realms before even the alarms go off. See, ripping open his shirt, revealing the Atom symbol. So he's basically Superman.
Yeah, it's Hyperion.
Yeah, Hyperion. Thank you.
Yep.
We get a senator for the District of Columbia who's going into the tunnels, suiting up in a Batman-esque costume. I think we get to the names a little bit later in here. You see a woman just doing MMA training, beating the shit out of someone, also getting the call in. 2 quick panels of a man who has 4 jobs at the same time, speeds out of there, flash. And then another gentleman sitting at his desk with a cube and just takes off in a glowing prism of light. And they are introduced as the Squadron Supreme of America. And it's basically this Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and multicolored Lantern, who are all reporting to Agent Coulson.
I think that's the big twist.
That is,
Which-
like I said, this is a big reason why I want to talk about this. Is Coulson? They are answering to him, and as you know, what's going on? Like Jerry mentioned, the map going on in the War of the Realms. The Jotun, the Ice Giants, are basically claiming America for their kingdom. So they're slowly kind of fighting through the Americas in there. And so when you got the Squadron Supreme of America, they ain't having that shit. So they go in there and just start decimating a bunch of ice giants.
Yeah.
And it's a big action sequence. Like they are just straight fucking them up pretty efficiently. Then we cut to a quick scene, a classy 9-panel page. That's not Tom King. Of, you said his name was Hyperion?
Yes.
Yeah. He's, him and the, Princess Zarda, who is the Wonder Woman, naked in a chamber, talking to each other, like kind of doing introductions, and all of a sudden talking about how much they love each other. And then at the end, it's revealed that like Coulson and some scientists are kind of like controlling their minds, kind of making them feel the way they want them. So cut back to more action from Batman kicking the shit out of some one ice giant.
It's Darkhawk.
Thank you. I'm looking through here again. Like I don't remember them saying their damn names. So thank you.
You're welcome, buddy.
Yeah, chime in. I'm gonna need all of them. Cut to him whooping some ass. 9 panels of him talking about how he doesn't trust anyone. Like take Batman's kind of mind always thinking about what's going on, turn it to paranoia, which again is Coulson manipulating this person. So then we get to the what's the name of the Flash guy?
It is Wizard.
Wizard. Thank you. Him doing his thing would basically turning
Worst name ever.
or bestest. Fighting some giants, and he goes around so fast, basically turning it into a meat tornado, just ripping them apart. It's fucking brutal.
Well, a meat tornado.
What do you call a tornado full of now fucking chunks,
human parts?
chunks of giant flesh? A meat tornado. And he takes a selfie in the middle of it. Another 9-panel page showing them just showing him all types of tapes of jihadist execution videos and celebrity sex tapes of him manipulating this man. Like you just see Coulson is like completely like, and he's like straight up Clockwork Oranging the Wizard, like 100%. Like making him watch a whole bunch of shit at like the speed of light, to keep up with his mind. Then the final wrap up is the what's the name of the multicolor lantern?
Dr. Spectrum. It's
Dr.
Green
Spectrum.
Lantern analog.
Right. He's just using this gem of multicolor to wreck the shit out of them. And they don't really show what they've done with him as far as control. But then it cuts to Coulson having dinner. Mm-hmm. And it's a very dark room and he's eating, what did they say? Try the zebra. It's delectable. So he's having a very eccentric dinner with, but you see the word balloon who he's talking to off panel is in red letters. And then you see a red hand handing him a steak. And it's basically like, we don't want to control the world. We're concerned about America. Which also cuts back to the Squadron Supreme of America chasing the Giants to Canada. And they're like, we're going to go after them? But nah, that's not our problem. Nope. We're America. But it's basically like, great. Yeah. And Coulson wants to defend, make this country the red, white, and blue. Cut to Mephisto having dinner with Coulson going, especially the red. So what the fuck, Coulson?
This is a different take on Coulson than we've seen.
I don't know what changes. I haven't read anything with him in it until then, but he has literally made a deal with the devil. Yeah. And it got me even more interested in what's going on with this War of the Realms thing.
Well, I don't think he trusts the Avengers right now.
No,
that's the problem.
They got killed.
It wasn't he? He came in towards the end of the first story arc for this, right? Yes. And we saw the Squadron Supreme kind of behind him, but they hadn't done anything with him until this, right?
There was something going on with Thunderbolt Ross connected to Coulson. It's a weird take on Coulson, and it's one of those things like I trust what Aaron's doing. He's and I love seeing the Squadron Supreme just for. They've been around since 1971. They were a Roy Thomas and John Buscema creation. I want to say Avengers 84, 85.
Something like that. It was an early Avengers.
I was absolutely like, granted, like you reminded me that they were in the background behind Coulson. I didn't know who the fuck they were then. And until this issue, I was like, it's those guys, but are they new? Are they?
Yeah, it's one of those things that Hyperion and Dr. Spectrum get used. The rest of them kind of get ignored.
Right.
And Hyperion more than
a little
Darkhawk. Yeah. Is it Darkhawk or Blackhawk?
Darkhawk. No, you're right. Okay. Yeah, Darkhawk.
Yeah. Hyperion probably the most often because he's a Superman analog. They can bring him in as like a Sentry type character, and
I mean they're beasts. Every single one of them is like completely powerful. They wreck those giants with ease. So like this, if this is going to lead to a clash with the Avengers, I can't fucking wait.
Yeah, Nighthawk. I think that's what's happening. Yeah.
Nighthawk. Sorry, we were both wrong.
Well, I was like, Darkhawk's costume's way more high tech.
So I think it's. Yeah, again, they use a couple of the characters more often than others. Hyperion's had his own runs before. Dr. Spectrum is sometimes used as a villain almost. But they don't generally run out the Squadron Supreme team. Right. They had a book not too many years ago that was Supreme Squadron.
Well, so they started during the Secret Wars they had Squadron Sinister.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is actually how these characters started. So Roy Thomas and John Buscema they created the Squadron Supreme. They didn't create these characters.
I was about to say it's been like a rotating cast, right?
Well, no, they were displayed before as the Squadron Sinister. They originally started off as bad guys, and they were absolutely Justice League analogs that they were being used in the Avengers. I forget which issue that was off the top of my head. I want to say it was Roy Thomas who wrote that, though. I could be completely wrong. But the Squadron Sinister was definitely like Thomas and Buscema. That's Avengers golden age, Silver Age. But you get my drift.
Right.
And they just been amazing. If you want to read some good Hyperion, go check out Jonathan Hickman's Avengers run, because at the end of it he shows up with that.
Right.
And then, like I said, during Secret Wars when they were like everybody was everywhere, they had the Squadron Sinister run on that.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff. I have a lot of those books.
And yes,
good stuff.
# Meat Tornado.
Yes, meat tornadoes abounding. I want to see what Aaron does on this, because I'm very confused about Coulson. This does not feel like Coulson. I'm not sure how you end up mind controlling these characters, especially Dr. Spectrum.
Right. It was like I
But-
said, like it's weird that when they were showing how they were doing it, it was very much like they're just programming. So I'm wondering some kind of control
for
chip
sure. I
within
was
their
almost
minds.
wondering if they were
Yeah.
like LMDs for a
Yeah.
minute. Like, and I mean, who knows? We'll find out. It's
It's interesting. And
craziness.
like I said,
What are you doing, Jason Aaron, with your craziness?
besides blowing our
Just
minds.
blowing minds left and right. Well, all right, we ready to kind of bring this thing home?
Yes,
Gonna do
sir.
some getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
All right. Well, so each week we like to end our show with telling you what you should look up, or what we at least think that you should look up on this next Wednesday, which is going to be New Comic Book Day. It's the first New Comic Book Day since Free Comic Book Day. There's been a lot of weird Comic Book Day hashtags going around, and it's good stuff. So we have some really, really great books coming out this week. Craig, what do you think we should pick up, man?
I think Batman and the Outsiders. They're kind of expanding the Bat family a little bit again, but it's being created. It's being the creative team on it is Brian Hill, Dexter Soy, and Tyler Kirkham. And Batman, as you know, Outsiders is a group of people that are kind of on the outskirts of the Bat family.
Right.
Katana and some of these other people that he brings in to help him out when he needs to. So, be interesting to see where they go with that.
Nice. Well, I think you should pick up not one book, not two books, but 8 books. Because they all have the same title. And I think you should pick it up because Murder Falcon number 8 comes out this next week. And it's the finale. It is the finale of Daniel Warren Johnson's metal-fueled, larger-than-life, mammoth drum beats from hell epic.
I'm ready for his next book.
I know you are. Yeah. And you can talk about that if you want to. Because you're getting goosebumps. I'm sitting there looking at you.
It's just old man Skywalker, nothing important.
Daniel Warren Johnson is a force. This series has been amazing. It's one of the, like, again, if you can mix black metal and a
violinist,
synth pop, and a violinist, and a very, very, very heartfelt love story in the same thing, you have accomplished some shit. And D-Dubs has accomplished some shit.
Yeah.
So, because that's just who he is. And so, yeah, check out Murder Falcon number 8. And if you can, grab the rest of those issues so you can read the full story. I actually own a page from this. Can't wait to get it framed. It's going to look great on the wall. Sean, tell me something.
Much like you, I'm going to tell you to pick up a book number 9. That is Unnatural. Which is the start of the final arc, but you should also buy all the other issues as well. This is a series I know me and Caleb especially have been pimping this book since it's come out.
I did the first arc. I don't know why.
I say you fell off of it, but like we've been talking about it for a while. I've stayed on it. It definitely started in one way and it has gone a different direction, which I kind of understand people might fall off. I can't wait to read this all in one sitting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like once I have all the issues, I plan to reread it in one whole story. But this is the beginning of the final arc, so I'm excited to see how it's going to wrap up.
If nothing else, I love to look at Mark Randolpho's art.
Oh,
Yeah, the art's beautiful.
The art should be enough reason for you to buy this. But like I said, it started off as a good analog for society, and it's kind of turned into a kind of a mysticism, superpower kind of thing going. But I'm still in it. So
Yeah. So I've got Ronin Island number 3.
Nice.
They've definitely hooked me on this title. I'm really interested in where it's going. We're having a bit of division here with our two main characters. With one of them really wanting to go and help the general in the mainland and everything because they know that it's going to negatively affect us.
Yeah.
And I am ready to see where this is going to take us next.
Greg Pak's got a lot of balls up in there.
Yes.
So he's juggling some shit.
Yep.
I likes it. Well, all right. Well, we hope you have enjoyed the last, about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes of hanging out with us on this beautiful Sunday morning. I have finished my delicious beer. So, again, I want to send a super huge shout out to Zach for sending me that and those Conan comics. Thanks, buddy. You're the best. Be looking at that mailbox. Keep an eye on it. I got something for you. If you want to come see more of this and hang out with us a little bit more, you should come to our Facebook group. You should check out our Instagram page, swing by our Twitter page. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those things. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, shoot me an email to southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. We are, after this episode post, we're going to be 2 episodes away from doing another listener question episode. So if you go to our Facebook page, I've stuck up a little thing where you can ask us questions, and a lot of folks have. Stephanie
We're gonna have
insane.
a Stephanie.
Stephanie she was ready. She was not fucking around.
right.
But we love those questions, so keep sending them. Fill up that little queue there. And if nothing else, man, go forth and love some comics.
We love you 3000.
Oh, the tears. Bye, guys.